Hello, my name is Rickard, and in this tutorial I'm going to show you how to add color to light or overlay brushes in Photoshop. And in the course of doing that, we're going to start with this image and create this composite. Let's get started. Alright, the first thing we're going to do is a quick composite. So let's go to File, Open. We're going to open the two JPEGs, Beach Sunset and Surfer. And I'll include a link to those in the description. So here's the surfer shot. What I want to do is I basically want to replace this background with this kind of nice sunset. We're going to do that right above here, this kind of line behind him where we have a bit of space. So we're going to have to cut him out of the background so that we can put a new background behind there. So let's go ahead and do that first. I'm going to go to my quick selection tool, and that'll give me this select subject button. You can also go here, select, and then go to select subject. Let's go ahead and do that first, and you can see it selected him out of the background and also selected this man here. Now I don't need that man, so I can just go in my lasso, hold down Option to get the minus lasso, and then remove that from the selection. Alright, next I'm going to go to Select and Mask, and with this tool I want to clean up the edges and also just add this surfboard to my selection. So let's first go to the Refine Edge, which is this brush here, and I want to paint around his hair. Just like that, and then maybe a little bit right there, this area here, right in there, there, kind of the edge of his leg here, that spot there. You can also see we have part of his shoulder here not selected, so let's just go on a brush tool here and just see if we can add that in. I'd usually do this with like a pen tool just because I feel like that would work better, but yeah, we'll go ahead and use this for now. Alright, and then I'm going to turn on Smart Radius, add 3 pixels, and hit OK. Alright, so we have him selected out of the background. Let's go ahead and make a copy of our background layer and just add a mask. And if I turn off the background, you can see he's cut out there, which is what I want. Next, we're going to do a little trick. As you can see, the color in this is heavily influenced by the sunset, and this doesn't have that. So rather than trying to adjust all the colors here, I'm going to do a quick little shortcut here. Go up to Image, and I made a copy. I always try to keep a clean background so that I can compare, do an A/B test from what I've done in my composite to my original. So that's why I just made another copy there. Now let's go to Image, Adjustments, Match Color. And with that other color, with this other file open here, it will show up under my source. So just make sure it's open and then go select that as a source, and you can see that color has been now applied to this image. Now because this is so strong, I actually want to pump up the color intensity here and even the luminance a bit. Normally I wouldn't do this, but for this image I think I need to. There you go. Let's hit OK. And let's go ahead and make a copy of this and just drag the mask onto this layer, and we can throw away that one. So there you go. We have him cut out of the background. Next thing I'm going to do is take this and just drag it in here and start to place it where I want it. I kind of want the sun probably right about there, so it's kind of over his shoulder. Let's go ahead and do Command T for transform. Make sure you have your anchor point turned on, which is this little checkbox here. Then just drag that to where your sun is. Then drag a corner and start dragging, holding down Option. And then I'm also going to hold down Shift and just stretch this up a bit. like so. Let me move it a little bit to the right. And I think that is pretty nice there. All right, let's hit the check mark. And this is kind of the line where I want my gradient to be. So it's kind of between his chin and his arm there is the middle of it. So let's add a mask to this, go on my gradient tool, make sure I'm on linear gradient with foreground to transparent, and then make sure black is your foreground color. And then we just know that it's this spot here is where we want the middle of our gradient to be. So I'm going to start probably down here and just go so that the middle ends up right about there. And that looks pretty nice. All right, so we now have that new background in. The next thing I want to do is add some blur to this background. As you can see, there's kind of a shallow depth of field here in this photo that doesn't exist in this photo, so they don't really line up that well. So, but before I do that, I also want to merge these two images together so that I'm applying the blur across everything. Now, one problem is if you've made a cutout like I have here, right, with this man and go to blur something, so let's just, for the sake of example, I'm going to use a Gaussian blur here, and start blurring the background, you can see this halo effect around him because he's still in that background. So to get around that, I've made a copy. What I'm going to do is I'm going to isolate the copy, hold down Option, click on the eyeball. And in this, but I'm actually going to do it with this turned on, so I'm going to go ahead and merge these two. But let's make a copy of this just in case I need it again. I'm going to turn that off. So there you go. I have copies of both my originals here and there. I'm going to merge these two together with Command E, and then I'm going to make a selection around the surfer like so. And then I'm going to use Content Aware Fill. You can see that's done a good job of getting rid of him. And now if we turn on our foreground guy. All right, so now with these two layers, I'm going to merge those two so we have it all in one layer. I'm going to go to Filter, Blur Gallery, and go to Tilt Shift. And with Tilt Shift, the middle represents what's in focus, and these blue dots also represent what's in focus. So I just want where he's sitting to be in focus, so this area right here. And then I want it to be blurry pretty much right away. So this represents when it's at its full blurriness, and then from the blue dot to the dotted line is kind of a gradient of blurriness. So that looks good. And then we can increase the blurriness. Still want to see a little bit of these waves, but otherwise it should be pretty blurry. So right about there looks good. Let's hit OK. The nice thing is this blurs that background, but it also blurs our foreground a little bit, kind of increasing that shallow depth of field. So that looks good there. And you can see it's got rid of a bit, but with that turned on, it's not going to be a problem. All right, so now we're going to add a flare, and I'm going to use a brush for this. And what I want to show you is how you can add color to a brush. So these all brushes are colorless, but in this case I'm going to show you how to add some color to the brush. So for starters, I want the brush to be white because I want the middle of the flare to be white. So let's go ahead and add to the very top. We're going to call this flare, and with my brush select, I'm going to make it as big as I can and just click right in there. I can adjust this so that the middle of the flare is right in the middle of the sun there. So that's pretty nice. Now here's where you may run into problems. If I try to add color to this, all I can do is change it from white to a different color. Whereas if you look at any flare naturally, it's usually one color in the middle, and then as it gets darker, it becomes another color. For example, it may be yellow in the middle and then go out to a more red color, or it may be blue in the middle and go out to a more purple color. So how do we do that? Well, the first thing we have to do is we have to change this from being pure white to a gradation of white to black. So to do that, I'm going to create a new layer. We can just call this black, and then fill that with black. So I'm doing that because black is my background color. I can hold Command and Delete to fill with my background color. And then I'm going to take both of these and merge them, Command E. And then I'm going to take this and put it on screen. All right, now I can start adding some color to my flare. So to do that, I'm going to use color balance. So let's go to Image Adjustments, Color Balance, and I want to go to the highlights and add yellow, maybe a touch of red. The midtones, I want to add yellow and some red, and then the shadows, I want to add primarily red. Now, if we look at this in normal mode, you can see our flare goes from yellow to red. Put this back on screen, you can see that looks more realistic in terms of a sun. I can also adjust the size, do Command T, just take my anchor point, place it in the middle, and then start dragging it in or out. Kind of like the little dot there crossing over on top of him. It just makes it feel more like this was all taken as one photo. So right about there is nice. And the last thing I may want to do, or one of the last things, is add a little bit of flare highlight to him. To do that, I'm going to isolate this bottom layer here and go to my channels and look for a channel that just has these highlights. So blue looks pretty good. Green, I kind of like the few hair highlights we're getting there as well. So I'm going to hold down Command and click on this layer. And then I want to intersect my current selection with the cutout of him. So I'm going to do that with Command, Option, Shift, and click on that layer mask. All right, now you hardly see any dots here, and that's okay. You're going to see them in a second. So we're going to call this Edge Highlight. And we're going to fill this with white, and I'm going to do it again, and again, maybe even one more time. Oof, a little much. He's looking a bit sick there, but we're going to get rid of most of it. So now let's add a mask to that. Go on our brush and just get a soft brush, and with black, I'm going to start painting out all the highlight except for right on his back there and kind of around his hair, which is where I want it. So just that area there. All right, we're going to put this on screen, and I want to add some yellow to this. So again, I can add my black layer. You can see there, I can merge those two. And also the beauty of having this is I can also now use a curve layer on it. So for example, with screen, I can go to my curve and I can pump up those light areas and maybe pump down the dark areas, make it a little more edge lit. And also, because there's now grays in this, I can go to blue, pull down the yellow so that as it goes away from pure white, it adds yellow, and also maybe a little bit of red. Like that. So now we're getting that kind of edge lighting that looks real nice. Turn that back on. All right, and then finally, I want to just add a little vignette to the whole thing. So I'm going to go on my circular tool and just kind of starting out from here, holding down Option, make kind of a nice oval shape. If I want to move it a little bit more to the left, I can push the space bar. That'll allow me to move the whole thing. So to right there, and I can let go of the spacebar and continue adjusting my size. Pretty cool trick there, that spacebar. So that's about where I want my vignette. So now that I've made that selection, how do we turn it into a vignette? Well, first we turn it into a quick mask, and then we blur our quick mask. So go to Gaussian blur, and you just want to blur that until you don't see this edge at all. So I'm going to do 650, hit OK, hit Q again, and then invert my selection, and then go here and add a curve. I want to make this curve darker to add that nice vignette, and then I want to go to the blues and just pull up the bottom so we get a nice blue color in here, and then maybe go to the red and add some cyan as well. And there you go. That's the before and that's the after. And that's a little trick of how you can add color to your lens flares or other brushes in Photoshop.